Hey folks, if you scan through any of my earlier videos, you'll see that I tackle a lot more than old computers. That's why I call it King of Projects, because not only is it my last name, but I tackle a whole lot more. If you've seen, I've worked on a solar power system, and another thing I've worked on over the years is cars. And today I'm going to show you how simple it is to do front brakes on a 2016 Dodge Ram. Not only are we going to take off the brake pads, we're also going to replace the rotors, and the tools you need are minimum. Of course, you need a jack stand for safety. You'll get a 13mm socket on a 3/8" ratchet and a 17mm open-end wrench. That's to get the caliper off. 21mm socket on a 1/2" ratchet. That's to get the caliper bracket off. Screwdriver to help pry it back and loosen the caliper so you can pull it off by hand. A brake tool. This is to push the pistons back in the caliper so you have enough room to put on the new brake pads. Grease to re-grease the caliper slide bolts. My impact driver decided today was the day to crap out on me, so we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. Okay, I got a jack stand under it, and the lug nuts off. Okay, we've got the open-end wrench on the caliper slide bolts, put the 13 on the caliper bolts themselves, and loosen it up. There we go. One down here at the bottom. Let me get you down here so you can see. Try to pry a little bit to get the caliper to squeeze in a touch to loosen it up. Don't worry about hurting it, you're just fighting against liquid. And there you go. Now, you don't have to disconnect it, but carefully set it on the lower control arm. There we go. Should be safe. Make sure it doesn't hang from the brake line. Remove the caliper slide pins. There's one. And two. Pull the brake pads off. They weren't horrible, but they were getting to about, I don't know, maybe between a half and a third left of its life. I mean, I'm at 71,000 miles. It definitely didn't hurt to go ahead and take care of this. I do a lot of over-the-road driving in this truck. Sometimes I haul a lot of weight. And one of the things I always never want to have to worry about on here is the brakes. And last is the caliper bracket itself. That's these two bolts right here. And these are a lot bigger. And they're probably a lot tighter, so I put the 1/2" on there and give it a little convincing. They're on pretty tight. So you might have to give it a little convincing. That's one. Make sure that caliper doesn't fall. As a matter of fact, I gotta push it a little further out of the way, just to make sure it's safe. There we go. And that's all there is to it. The bracket comes off, and now the rotor's free. Now the rotor's really not in too bad a damage. You can see some wear lines into it. It is not smooth, and to make sure that it was done properly, you could take the rotor off and have it turned, which would be to plane down the surface. But the thing is, when you turn a rotor, you thin it out, and the thinner the rotor is, the better chance it has of warping under high braking. The rotors I'm replacing them with are of a higher carbon content than the originals, a little higher quality, and I do a lot of highway driving where I end up braking because somebody does something stupid right in front of me, and I want to make sure I'm safe. So I'm doing a little bit of an upgrade here. Now in reality, the rotor's just sitting there. If you have a lot of rust in your area, it's possible that this can get rusted and stuck to the hub. Give it a couple of shoves. If you don't feel it coming loose, get a little convincer. It's coming. And there we go. So you can see it gets rust here, and there's also rust on the opposite side on the back of the rotor, and it gets stuck there. So sometimes it needs a little convincing. You just need to be careful. Don't damage the wheel sensor here. Everything's fine. Yeah, there is some pitting on the back. The pitting really does show up on this, on the back. It's been subjected to some high heat on the inside. I don't know if the interior brake was grabbing more than the exterior one or not, but well, we're going to take care of this. And this is the brake rotor I chose, a Duralast Gold. It's a higher carbon content rotor than the original. You'll notice that it's black. It's got a special coating on it to help keep rust away. The coating will rub off where the brake pads go. It does not interfere with braking, but it stays on in other areas that does not have the brake pad surfaces on it, and it helps reduce rusting. Well, they do look nice, I gotta give them that. Now one thing you might consider doing, the brake pads ride on these slots. They go back and forth, and it doesn't hurt to get a file and clean them out so that there is no interference, because what happens is that when you take your foot off the brakes, the clips on the brake pads are supposed to help pull them away from the rotor just slightly so that they're not constantly sitting on the rotor and maybe overheating and maybe pitting it like that old rotor did. It doesn't hurt. Take the time to clean this up. See, a lot better. Perfect? No, but a whole lot better. and should keep the interference down from the pads moving back and forth. Put my knee there to help hold that rotor, because remember, the rotor is not being, it might help if I put it right side up. The rotor is not being held on with anything other than the fact that the bracket is in the way of it coming off. That's all that holds it at this point. Bolts in, bolts in. Remember, these are on pretty tight. I'll torque them down in a bit. What's next are the slide pins. Take the rubber boot off. As long as it's in good condition, you can reuse it, and these are fine. Clean off the old grease. Make sure the slide pin isn't worn. This looks good. Get a little bit of grease. There we go. The boot back on. And do the same to the other. Looks good. Push it up till it clicks. There we go. Ready to install. All right, guide pins back in. Clean off any excess grease. You don't want any outside of the boot. And then make sure the boot clicks down over like that. There we go. Lower one. Click down. And there we go. Now the brake pads I'm putting on are Duralast Elite. These are also an upgrade from the OEM. These are a ceramic brake pads. Ceramic brake pads usually last longer, and also they usually end up having less brake dust on your rims. One thing we're going to do before we put the brake pads on is push back the calipers. Get an old pad, set it there. Adjust it so it'll fit. And since this has got 2 pistons on this caliper, some calipers have 1, this one's got 2, I'm going to have to take turns. Just crank it down, pushing it back. You're going to have to push it back basically all the way until it stops. Enough. I mean, these 2 pistons are connected. Try to go as close as you can to the center, as much as the tool will allow you, because when you press on one, the other one's going to want to come out. And they've both got to go back. So Let's say we're just about there. Let me try a little bit here. All right, let's hope that that's far enough. New brake pad with new clips. There we go, there's one. As you can see, sometimes clips are used to help hold a brake pad in place. These are really, what they're made for is when the caliper releases, when you take your foot off the brake, it helps pull the pad away from the rotor just a little bit, and it keeps it from riding and wearing on the rotor when you're not braking. Get the other one. They're both the same. You don't have to worry about which one's which. Put the clips on. The clip, or the little tongue on the clip, face away from the pad. And we put them in the notch in the back. Oh, good. See, it was worth sanding those notches in the caliper bracket. They have no problem springing back. Before, I took a look at them in the old ones, and they were kind of jammed, so that's good. Now let's see if the caliper has been pushed back far enough. Make sure you don't wind the brake line into a knot by accident. Let's see if we've got enough space. We do. Just push the caliper pins back in, and look at that, it's on. Put the bolts in. Put your 17 on the caliper pin. And there you go, new front rotors and brakes on the front of the truck. If you're prepared and have the right tools and don't run into any more problems or have anything else wrong in there, it might take a half an hour on each side. That's as long as it would take, as long as everything goes according to plan. I hope you don't mind that I also work on vehicles. This is something I've done since I was young. As a matter of fact, that's another project over there that I'm working on. Well, I hope I helped somebody out there, and catch you next time.